Magyanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namashrishtam Manumapi Sachiputram Atraswarupam Rupam tasyagrajam murupurim madhurim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaram maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri gurum tam natosmi Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Nikhila shruti male ratnamaladiti nirajita padapankajanta Haji Mukta Kulairupashyamanam Paritashvam Harinam Samshayami Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalaho Shamarpaitum Unnatoj Sabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandanaha Ajanulambita Bujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dhijabaro Jugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namostute He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahine Kripaya Nijapadabja Dasyamayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinay Aparadha Lakshay Kshipta Shakamadhi Tarangamadhi Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Sri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Samavida Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Om. Yes, for a glass of water, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. So good morning to all. And welcome, Pranam. So today we're past our 10 days of exploration. Time goes quickly, interestingly. And today we are in our last full day, official last full day of our retreat, though tomorrow we'll continue having a morning session and exploration and reflection about how these days have transpired. But today is the last official full day of this particular retreat, this exploration on evolution in divine love that we've done. And I think today is the 5th morning exploration on some of the themes of the book, Evolution in Divine Love. Yesterday we were talking about, we touched upon just starting to scratch the surface, start to warm up. It's an eternal warming up. There's always something else coming. So yesterday we explored in the direction of unconditional love, trying to put together God, love, and us, which had been some of the main themes of our first days. Thank you. So we talked about deconstructing false notions of the divine and rediscovering the sweet absolute for what it is, a sweet absolute field made of unconditional love, and how on the basis of that we can build a strong case, a foundation for self-love, self-acceptance, and extending that embrace to the totality of reality at one point, hopefully, falling in love in an absolute way with the totality of reality. So again, we have addressed so far many of the main themes of the book, evolution and divine love. We have talked about love, we have talked about the divine, we have talked about ourselves, our potential, ever evolving, ever devolving. We have talked about paradox, deconstruction. We have embraced paradox and deconstruction in our grief exploration in many ways. And again, we went to the embrace of unconditional love and tried to rest there enough. We have visited the tavern a few times, got more than drunk, poetry in between, so many things happening. Life is intense and dynamic. But I know we have touched briefly, but today we want to touch more deeply into this particular department called matter. The world of matter, material world, material energy, the kingdom nature. Nature kingdom, sorry. So that's the 4th chapter of Evolution in Divine Love. As you know, there are 4 chapters. First one on love, second one of God, third one on the soul, fourth one of matter, and the chapter itself is called The Depths of Matter. Just to suggest the idea that matter has depths, just in case. If we thought that we were dealing just with something that is merely superficial and it has no depth whatsoever, that's not the case. No? We have to learn to go beyond appearances, what appears to be. So it's interesting because, again, this was not planned intentionally, but my previous book to the last one, Radical Personalism, the last chapter was on matter as well. There were more chapters than in this one. And the last one was called, I remember, Unearthing Heaven. Using those 2 words, trying to make the point you can discover the spiritual world right here, right now. Unearthing heaven. How can you go to the earth and discover heaven on earth, basically, and not wait for heaven to be something else that has nothing to do with earth, nothing to do with nature, nothing to do with matter even. So that was the last chapter of Radical Personalism. I felt, okay, let's begin on a note of appreciation, and not only appreciation, but wonder and worship and love with matter. That's, again, we say we have to fall in love in an absolute way with the totality of reality. Part of that is you have to learn to fall in love with matter. Oops, really? I thought it was fall in love with Krishna. Yes, and whatever is connected to him, which is everything, included matter. So the last chapter of Radical Personalism was in matter, and the last chapter of Evolution in Divine Love is about matter as well. It felt natural to, again, go there. Although some may say, oh, that's redundant, Maharaj. You finished 2 books talking about the same thing. And I will reply, I don't care. I don't care in the sense that it's a theme that we can never emphasize enough, especially if we have inherited a toxic legacy, sometimes, not always, in how to relate to the material world. Not only in our tradition, but in general, religion has made a very good, bad case in terms of this, and seeing the world as something that is ontologically an obstacle to the divine, ontologically profane, at its very core, non-sacred and whatnot, right? So many times again, we could have begun with matter in one sense, because also at the same time, for many of us, matter is the most immediate reality for most people. For many people, if I talk to them about God and love and the soul, they may say, that's all ethereal stuff, invisible. Talk me about the concrete, the real, this. So for most people, matter is the most immediate thing. So there's a case to make, okay, we could have begun there. I chose to begin with love, since I consider that's the source of everything, and that puts everything else in context. It puts God in context, puts us in context, puts matter in context. But also, again, we could have begun with matter, because many times matter is one of the most, again, stigmatized, misunderstood departments of creation. And religious people have done a good deal of mess in the name of God, stigmatizing matter, pushing matter aside. And that's why we have, in big part, the ecological crisis we have, because of religious people pushing God outside of this world. So what remains here is profanity. But it's not sacred, so we can treat that as for what it is, non-sacred, and then you have the state of affairs that we are facing now. So we need to, though I have not started this book nor my previous book with matter, we have concluded on matter, and we are concluding with matter in this series. We could make a case to begin with material energy also. Our tradition does so in many ways. I try to mention that in my book, trying to do justice to the fact that I left matter for the last chapter, but at the same time, you leave something for the end that also lands in a certain way, that concludes there. But I remember talking with, that's how, again, theological cross-pollination. You learn from someone else, and then you go back to your tradition, and it's like, oh, we also have that. I remember we had a podcast with one scholar from the Vallabh Sampradaya. Her name is Maitri Goswami. She's in the Free Radical podcast. And she was mentioning how in their school, Vallabh Sampradaya, which is a Vaishnava lineage, very close to Gaudiya Sampradaya in many ways. Vallabh was friends with Rupa Goswami and so on. Under their systematic approach is first the world of matter, then the soul, then God. Start with the, again, concrete, immediate, then you become more subtle, the soul, then you can be even more subtle, so to say, the super soul, the divine. But begin with what you have around you, and learn to see that in a sacred way. So I really appreciated that that approach. And as I say, after my conversation with her, I went back to the Bhagavatam and I realized, oh, that's in the Bhagavatam. And of course, there are some pradayas based on the Bhagavatam and ours as well. And I started reading the Bhagavatam, and I couldn't avoid seeing the Bhagavatam, seeing certain things in the Bhagavatam that I never saw before. That's how you realize that you can never end up reading any of this sacred literature. And the point was very obvious to me, and was the following: when Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukadeva Goswami his famous questions, 6 questions about reality and life and the purpose of everything, the first thing that Sukadeva Goswami gives as an answer is the Vishwarupa. And Parikshit Maharaj didn't ask anything about that. He didn't ask the world of matter. He asked about the purpose of life, but that includes a lot of things. And Sukadeva Goswami starts answering by describing this world as the body of God. In other words, before we talked about any other thing, learn to see this world as the body of God. This world, this planet, matter, as sacred. That's how Bhagavatam, the first answer begins. And many other parts then in the Bhagavatam I was reading, the main teacher starts replying to this back and forth to the Q&A with his student or her student. The first thing they say, the many other parts of the Bhagavatam, is Vishwarupa, universal form. Though never in the first question there is a question about the universal form. But they start from that place. Begin, let's talk first about this world. Let's warranty that you are seeing matter in a sacred way. Then we can proceed to others, more fine stuff. Have you ever read that in the Bhagavatam? It's there, all over. I have diverse quotations here if you doubt me. Go to the endnote section. And I didn't see that for many years as well. Again, that's how you rediscover and rediscover and rediscover sacred texts over and over again. Sometimes we need other people pointing that to us from our tradition, from sister traditions. It doesn't matter. As long as we can continue rediscover these things, right? So the Bhagavatam actually describes the world of matter with the term mandala in Sanskrit. I refer to that in my book, mandala. Mandala, of course, many things. Mandala means circle. Mandala is an object of meditation. You may think of a mandala more about these geometric aesthetic patterns, which generally are considered like, sometimes that those are printed and you just look at them. And it's kind of a geometrical expression of something invisible. So it's an object of contemplation and meditation. So the Bhagavatam refers to this world as Bhumandala. So by calling it mandala, it's indicating, among other things, it's a mandala. It's an object of contemplation. It's an object of meditation. No? It's inviting for contemplation. It's inviting for meditation. So we are to engage with the realm of matter from a contemplative place. And also mandala, literally mandala, the word mandala means circle. Like we have the rasa mandala, circle dance of the rasa dance. A circle indicates something complete, right? It's a symbol for completeness. And as we say the other day, Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam. And many more Purnams after that. But the first two say Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam. This is complete, that is complete. And most of the commentators will refer, the first complete is the divine, and the second complete, Om Purnamada Purnamidam. This complete, the source, God is complete. Purnamidam, that is complete also. That is the material world. But the world of matter is perfect and complete. It's mandala, it's a circle, it's complete. That's why the Bhagavatam is called this word mandala. Again, it's all in the Bhagavatam. I'm preaching the Bhagavatam. The gospel of the Bhagavatam, the good news, right? So it's complete. It's a circle. It's an object of meditation. It's an object of contemplation. And that's how the Bhagavatam begins. Again, Vishwarup, universal form, Bhumandala, the world is sacred, is complete. Of course, the Bhagavatam culminates in the Rasa Mandala, in the circle dance of Krishna and the gopis. But before arriving at the Rasa Mandala, first you have to go through the Bhumandala. First, you learn to see the world as sacred, complete, an object of meditation, and then gradually, the whole text converges into another circle, another expression of completeness, another object of meditation and contemplation, the Rasa Mandala, the Rasa Lila. But the Bhagavatam doesn't start with Rasa Mandala, it starts with Bhumandala. First, perceive the sacredness of matter, and then we all the way up, so to say, to the divinity of everything. And in case you are still not convinced that our tradition is not speaking about all these things, like the other day we were talking about God's unconditional love, and we could have resorted to, as we were sharing these days, we have here a whole book from different authors, from different traditions about love poems from God. So I could have just opened randomly any page of this book and give you testimony of how many traditions speak about God loving for us, but I instead chose, let's just go to our tradition, so you actually are reassured that this is present also in the school you belong to, right? So this is the same. I'm now pounding the post with the Bhagavatam. Sometimes, unfortunately, the Bhagavatam may have been weaponized and you have been hit on your head. The Bhagavatam say that, the Bhagavatam say. So we may need to redeem without discarding the Bhagavatam, without throwing the baby away with the bath water. So Bhagavatam said all the things I said for more endnotes here. There's a lot of endnotes and quotations from the God, and take your time. I'm not writing this endnote section for nothing. If you're curious enough, you go there, and you have like, I don't know how many endnotes are, but I think like there are 500 endnotes in the whole book. So you can see, yeah, some pages. Yeah, wow, okay. You have 20 pages of endnotes. And yeah, I know it's like, who will go there, right? 20 pages of endnotes, just such a nerdy guy writing a book with so many endnotes, so boring. And it's okay, I'm not trusting you go through each one of them, but just to make the case in a scholarly way, so that there it is. No, if you want, there you have it, the sources, source material, other traditions, our tradition, all over the place. And the Vedanta, again, describes matter, describes planet Earth, another way of saying Mother Nature, Mother Earth. It's a consort of God, Bhumi Devi, consort of the divine, sometimes described in those ways, sometimes described as one of his Shaktis, inseparable potencies, dedicated full in the service of the divine, matter. Another part of the Vedanta will describe 24 gurus. You know that section? The first one, the earth. First one, no, the earth. Then it will speak about the 7 main mothers, one of them, the earth. So what else do we need to see matter as sacred, basically? Like the thing is that, okay, let's try to describe it as sacred in all the possible ways. Okay, it's a consort of God, it's your mother, it's your guru, it's this, it's that. Oh, come on. Do you get it? Sorry? Wasp.
There's a wasp, there's a guru as well.
Oh yeah. If we go to the 20, we need another retreat for the 24 gurus. There's a wasp. Most of them are elements of nature, actually, of those 24, as we always like to say. From the 24, 21 are elements of nature. The wind, moon, sun, fire, deer, wasp, bee. 3 only are humans. 1 is a baby, 1 is a little girl, and the only adult is a prostitute. Those are the 24. Again, very unexpected notion of Guru Tattva. So we were talking last night. The main guru figure of the Bhattan is a 16-year-old naked boy. Counterintuitive. Inviting you to deconstruct your notions of what it means to be an elder. So anyhow, as I tried to mention, there are many times in the Bhattan that material nature, whether we speak about an energy, the material world, the universe, planet Earth, different ways of addressing the same principle is described as mandala, complete, perfect, after contemplation of meditation, sacred, of your mother, the wife of God, inseparable energy, your guru. You pick the one you like the most, but pick one of this and go deep into that and see the sacredness of matter. And of course, I'm saying all this, why? Because we need to pound the post, because many times, unfortunately, we may have had an unhealthy relationship with matter, a dysfunctional one. Again, matter, the word matter comes from the German, which actually comes from the very root of the word mother. From matter and mother is just one little detail there, but it's the same root. So if we speak about matter, you are talking about your mother. And again, in our tradition, 7 mothers, mother cow, mother this, mother that, mother matter. Right? So if you have a dysfunctional relationship with matter, is akin to having a dysfunctional relationship with your mom. You won't grow a very healthy child. If your connection with your mother is dysfunctional, you won't be a full, complete, integrated person. So material energy is our mother. If we are not treating her properly, communicating empathically, honoring, serving her as an elder, as a guru, we may grow dysfunctional children. Even in the name of being Gaudiya Vaishnavas and this and that. No? How is your relationship with mom? Right? And of course, a point that I like to make, and this is an interesting one, at least for me, hopefully for you as well, is that, of course, we speak about matter, but there are these other departments. We have God, we have love, we have soul, we have matter, Shakti man, and 3 Shaktis, God and these 3 energies, material world, souls and love or bhakti. And this constitutes the totality of reality. And these are all interconnected departments. They do not exist separate from one another. So if I have a wrong idea about one of them, probably that will affect how I conceive the rest of them. So to give you an example, many times, why do we have a dysfunctional relationship with matter? Because we started having the wrong idea about God, right? If God, for example, is someone who is utterly transcendent, doing his own thing in his own place, is not here, has nothing to do with this place, is aloof from material creation, is utterly transcendent, utterly otherworldly, and you push God that far, then again, this world is seen as profane, as a prison, that you are sent to be chastised because you are inherently flawed. You fell from paradise, you fell from Golok Vrindavan, whatever the version, original sin. So you are bad, and because of that, you come here, which is a bad place. And you have been sent here by probably someone that you also start to think is bad, or that is utterly indifferent, which is even worse. He's so. You follow my point? So how one idea, and what's love? Oh, then love is something that now you, so such a bad, crippled person here in prison, you have to become a very good, perfect boy and girl to earn and deserve love. You have to perform perfectly, be a good boy, a good girl, and then God will pay attention to you. How do you call that? This, I don't know if this is an English word, and excuse me for that. Bullshit. One time in the whole retreat, I have permission to use it. It had the effect I was planning, so it's fine. But do you follow my point? Like one wrong idea about God, you get a wrong idea about us, about the world, about love. It becomes all transactional, all earning, deserving, competition, perfectionism, exhausting. And the world is bad, and it's a prison, and you're blah blah blah. So one wrong idea about something can, as Prabhupada will say, you're adding numbers, you add the first two numbers wrong, no matter how perfectly you try to perform the rest of the additions, the end result is wrong. Because you started on the, I don't know if you say that in English, you woke up on your left foot, they say? Okay, they say wrong. In Spanish, say left. Like the right is the right one. Anyhow. But this is also interesting because, and it's tricky, I know it can be tricky, but it's not only if you get the wrong idea about Krishna or God, you get the wrong idea about soul, matter, and love. But if you get the wrong idea about matter, you get the wrong idea about the other three. And if you get the wrong idea about the soul, you can start the addition with anyone, and if you get the wrong, because all of them are interconnected. No? So that's a price of interconnectedness. I mean, it's beautiful, everything is interconnected, but the risk of interconnectedness is that you get one wrong and you get everything else wrong, because everything is interconnected with everything else. Relationality, sambandha. Sambandha in Sanskrit means basically interconnectedness. Sambandha, everything sambandha is bonded, is tied with everything else. That's the foundational education, knowledge we receive as Gaudiya Vaishnava. So we are supposed to receive. Love, God, soul, matter, all exist in relationship. God is relationship. Like in the Christian Trinitarian view, they will say God is not one, it's three. And that means God is relationship. It's not just one isolated being, but it's a dance of relationality. Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and as we said the other, we have our own Trinity, not to compete with sister traditions, just this pattern of reality, relationality. So, okay, you can do the same exercise if you want to do and have some extra homework some days. Try to do that. Start with the wrong idea about yourself and see how that creates a wrong idea about this world, about God, about love. Start with the wrong idea about love, see how that creates a wrong idea about God, the world, and you, and so on and so forth. Again, it's beautiful that everything is interconnected, but there is a risky price to that because you get the wrong idea about one. You follow my point? Sorry if I repeat a little bit myself, but we need to pump the boost. Some months ago, we were in Austria, and we did, maybe you recall this retreat that came to be called "What is an Artha Nivriti?" Really, that's the most important part. Really, and of course, an Artha Nivriti at the end of the day means literally deconstructing false values or false beliefs. Anartha, artha means value. Anartha means false values, and nivriti means to do away with, to deconstruct. So when we were talking about that, and how Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say the first anartha is tattva Brahma, or to be confused about reality, which is a very interesting way of saying. What's an anartha? To have wrong ideas about what is what. That's an anartha. And then we were exploring the evolution in divine love and the section on key paradigm shifts at the end of each chapter, and I realized, in one sense, this book is basically a treatise on an Artha Nivriti, because without me thinking in those terms, but in each chapter, okay, let's talk about love, and let's give a coherent definition of love. Let's do away with the incoherent ones, a healthy, realistic one. Key paradigm shifts about love. Let's turn to God. Let's deconstruct toxic notions about the divine. Let's bring realistic ones. Let's go to the soul. So it was all about constant and Artha Nivriti, deconstruction of false values, deconstruction of false values. So we can have a healthy experience of God, love, soul, and matter also, again. And that's why at the end of the chapters I have the key paradigm shifts, basically, right? Inviting to recalculate. What's love? What's God? What's the divine? What's soul? What's matter? Not only in a realistic way, but in ways that is nourishing, that we can talk about love and grow in love, so to say. Not, okay, let's talk about love, and everyone ends up traumatized. No? Okay, we have a talk about God. Oh my gosh, I don't want to go there. Who knows what you will say? That's not the idea. Okay, let's talk about matter. Oh, how boring, or how whatever. No, ideally, each one of these tattvas, departments of reality, should be very excited. So again, the more toxic our idea about God, the more toxic our idea about everything else. And by correspondence, the healthier idea about the divine, about love, about us, the healthier our idea about the world of matter. So that's interesting. The more I heal my connection with the divine, I find myself having healed my connection with the world of matter. Automatically, if it's proper healing, because it's interconnected. Because again, as we said the other day, the goal of life is to fall in love in an absolute way with the totality of reality. But for that, we have to have healthy ideas of the totality of reality. If I'm traumatized by my ideas about God, if my idea about love is absolutely transactional, if I have a very poor sense of self-acceptance and the material world is a horrible place, how will I fall in love with all that? I'm running away from all that, running away from God, running away from this world, running away from myself, running away from everything. But if you run away from everything, where are you running toward? There's nothing else but everything you're running away from. So sometimes spiritual life happens to end up being that, interestingly. We have wrong ideas about everything, and we end up running away from everything. But if you run away from everything, there's nowhere else to go. But still you try. All in the name of spiritual practice, and it's a desperate attempt, doomed to failure. So again, the goal of life is prayojan, fall in love in an absolute way with the totality of reality. But that will only happen if sambandha is in place. If I have a healthy conception of what's the totality of reality, which is God, soul, love, God, soul, and matter. That's the totality of reality. Everything is encompassed in those four. If I have a healthy sambandha, a healthy idea and relationship with these notions, with these realities, then I can fall in love with them. If not, I will run away from them. And the falling in love with them, again, it has to be a voluntary choice. I'm falling in love with them. It's not like I'm forced to fall in love with them. That's nonsense. You cannot be forced to fall in love with anything. So that's so important why Sambandha needs to be healthy. And if it wasn't healthy, then it has to be recalibrated and healing to the unhealthy version of it. So when there is proper Sambandha, then Abhideya becomes an unavoidable consequence. I will practice, I will live my life drawn by these beautiful ideas of God, love, soul, and matter. I cannot but conduct myself in my life and practice following those healthy conceptions of each one of those. And naturally, that will take me to that goal, to fall in love in an absolute way with the totality of reality. So going back to matter, I mean, we have never left matter. Here we are. But considering all that and focusing today on the material energy and the interconnectedness of everything, and considering how many times we have got wrong ideas about the world, and many times how our wrong ideas about the world are connected, tied to wrong ideas about God, let's continue with the poem, in which we will witness how God feels for this world, as an attempt to heal those wounds, to integrate, to not put God here and matter here, but to see how these two are together and everything else is in between that. So we shared this the other day in our night tavern, but it will go again. And it's from our beloved Saint Francis, of course. If we have to talk about love for the material world, he's the patron saint of that, we can say. Probably I actually began the whole, I mean, I thought that was the only poem I was going to read, and that's how it all began. God will kneel down. So St. Francis is saying through the inspired pen of Daniel Ladinsky, I think God might be a little prejudiced. For once he asked me to join him on a walk through this world. And we gazed into every heart on this earth. And I noticed he lingered a bit longer before any face that was weeping and before any eyes that were laughing. And sometimes when we pass the soul in worship, God too will kneel down. I have come to learn God adores his creation. God adores his creation. Creation is adorable. Not even worshipable is a little bit more distance. Adorable, right? We are invited to a life of adoration, not so much of worship, right? So, and why? Because the divine is already doing that. So creation is adorable. We are adorable. God says the soul is amazing, ascharya, as we said yesterday. And the very same word that he uses for us, ascharya, 3 times in the Gita, just so you don't develop a superiority complex. I am ascharya, and we all souls are ascharya. But this world of matter, we have to find another word. Well, you go to the Bhagavatam, and the same word, ascharya, is used for the material creation. So, sorry for that. It's all ascharya. No place for superiority complexes. So the world of matter is wonderful, the Bhagavatam says, amazing. But again, I'm insisting on this because many times the narrative has been different. There has been some other form of input we may have inherited in some cases through religious circles, spiritual circles, many times. Matter is bad, matter is profane, the material world has to be left as soon as possible. It's an obstacle to the divine. Some of us have this idea of, I don't know, Maya is an evil personality that wants to make you fall as soon as possible and is competing with Krishna. So watch out at your every step, watch out. She will be trying to trick you into, the scriptures say Maya is a Vaishnavi of the highest caliber, serving Krishna. How can you think that she's ashamed of the service she's offering, says about them. Someone has to, but it's not like I'm having such fun doing that. I have to be here to allow people to have free will. Because you have to be able to choose something apart from divine love for divine love to be voluntary. But we have inherited many times this idea, this world is bad. And by extension, many times, there you have the whole, how to say, a whole array of consequences coming from that. If the material world is bad, then the body is bad, or profane, or whatever. Material world is bad, then family life is bad, or inferior, or profane, or entangling by nature, or dark wellish. Right? Yeah, whatever, jackal. And if material world is bad and the soul and family life, of course, relationships are bad, are wrong, we don't have to work on that. And humanity, that's inferior, that's low. Human, working on the human being level, that's not transcendental, that's not divine, that's not pure. Sexuality, of course, is the worst of the worst, right? Mm-hmm. Because all of this is bad. So to have sex, of course, is abhorrent. Of course, don't take me literal. I'm speaking sarcastically here. Don't make a clip out of context. Though maybe some other sannyasi will want to have a clip saying that, but I say I would like to say the opposite. No. But do you agree? Many times this happens, right? The body is bad, the world is bad. You have to get out as soon as possible. Sexuality is bad, relationships are bad. But all that comes from the misconception matter is bad. We need 10 more retreats to address each one of these separately, right? Humanity, sexuality, relationships. Emotions are bad. It's tied to this body, psychic body, human stuff. And again, we miss the whole thing that we are worshiping. We want to enter a place that's called Nara Lila, which means fully, Nara Lila means human play. That's where Krishna is waiting for you, Mahaprabhu. That's who they are in their fullest expression. It's fully human, fully divine. So we can really end up throwing the baby away with the bathwater, and so many babies are being thrown away. Whole nursery are like, oh, body, humanity, emotions, family, relationships. Because all that is profane, supposedly. No. Now, what it means, the word profane, as you may know, I said a few times, the very meaning of the word, etymologically, profane means outside of the temple. Interestingly. And contemplative means inside of the temple, contemplum. But again, by temple, we don't mean a building, right? Or go inside the building, I'm contemplative. Oh, I'm crossing outside the building, oh, I'm profane again. That's how a Kanishta Adhikari may think. No? Literally taking these words. Oh, now I'm in sacred space. I'm in the temple. Now I'm leaving. I'm in profane space again. I have my material life. I have my spiritual life. When I go to the temple on Sunday, that's my spiritual life. Then the rest of the week is my material life. We still think in those binaries and dichotomy and dualistic ways of thinking. No? Or my practice. Yeah, I have my practice. And for many of us, my practice means chanting rounds. And I'm not saying that's not practice, but your practice should be your whole day. But still, and I hear still devotees, some of you actually these days, speaking about practice and my practice, and being reductionistic of what practice means. So my practice is what I do in the morning before going to work or whatever, my reading and my chanting. And again, that's practice. But you should do that part of the practice in such a way that the rest of the day is an extended part of your practice. And everything is your practice. Your practice is your life becomes your practice. No? So, again, that means to be in the temple. He said, Prabhupada will say, Srila Prabhupada once, this is a very nice quote he says, and I referred to it in the book. He will say, Krishna is omnipresent. Right? God is everywhere. He says two things. first, God is everywhere, which is in itself is a big idea. Too big, we cannot think about. But for me, it's a very beautiful exercise to. I try to do that a lot in the shower, but I can do it. And we can do it anywhere. Like just to remind yourself, like God is fully present right here, right now. Just because when you remind yourself about that, you realize how much you have forgotten about that. From the previous reminder to the next one, in between there was an absence of that awareness. But right here, right now, in this precise moment, the sweet absolute is fully present. Stay there. Stay tuned to that. So you don't need to go anywhere in one sense. You just need to continue to arrive to that awareness, to that presence. So Prabhupada will say, God is everywhere, and wherever he is his temple. Conclusion, you please tell me. If God is everywhere, and whatever he is his temple, if A plus B, if A plus B equals C, anyhow, you know what I mean. Thank you so much. So everything is the temple. Sometimes we build buildings we call temple, but those are reminders that everything is his temple. So when we go inside those buildings, it's just an intensive reminder, hopefully immersive experience. So we go out and we carry on with us, and we continue experiencing temple everywhere. I always say this famous story, not famous, but for me it's important. As we were saying the other day, that when the Christian colonizers came to Native America, and they told the natives, okay, destroy the whole forest. We need the wood. For what? To make a temple. And they was like, but that's the temple. You want to destroy the temple to make a temple? That makes no sense. The forest is the temple. Everywhere is the temple by extension, right? So what's the meaning of destroying something to make, well, anyhow. So Prabhupada said that Krishna is everywhere, and whatever he is, that's his temple. So if you are able to be tuned to that frequency, you are a contemplative. Now that means contemplative, like contemplative inside the temple, profane outside of the temple. Of course, if everywhere is the temple, there's nothing profane. So profane means basically the unawareness that everything is a temple, that everything is sacred. And that's when we start to destroy everything and mistreat everything, because we lost sight of the sacredness of everything. I'd like to share a few paragraphs from Evolution, Divine Love before we go to exercise 1. It's from page, if you want to join me, page 190. 190. 190. And again, it's basically a summary of what I've said so far, but just pounding the post a little bit more. Needs to go deep. We want a very grounded, fixed, unshaky post in this thing. I'm starting in the first paragraph that it starts there. Material energy, right? Material energy as a pure devotee. I can stop there. Material energy is a pure devotee. That's on the assumption of, not the assumption, but that's I've mentioned that before, and that was interesting because today I was quickly, before coming to the lecture, I checked Facebook, and sometimes there are some nice. I check the Facebook, how they call it, memories. Mostly because sometimes there are quotes that I loved and I quoted 1 year ago, and now I'm reminding, and I just shared them again. And there's one here. That's exactly from today, but 1 year ago. And this is an insight that actually came of our UK retreat last year. So you are to blame for that in part. Because it came on the spot, and I was like, oh, maybe you remember where I'm going. And I was like, wow, that's cool. But it was not my plan. So I'll read the post. Why not? I have it here. The title is, Are we engaging material energy in bhakti, or is she engaging us? Now you remember that. So I start with one quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam again, our tradition, 2nd canto, 7th chapter, verse 53. Still you have not been yet convinced. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.53 encourages regular contemplation of God's interactions with the material world. That's what the Bhagavatam says there, encouraging you to contemplate God interacting with matter, concluding that such practice frees one from all illusion. In his commentary to that verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur offers a radical perspective, stating that one should have faith that the material energy is a devotee with the greatest devotion. But he's saying you should have faith, like implying probably you won't believe me when I say it. So please, you should get to the point of having faith that material energy is the greatest Vaishnavi. If you attack matter, if you downplay matter, you are committing Vaishnavi aparat. We don't want that. In other words, Maya Shakti, material energy, is not a mundane, profane, or polluted reality, but a Vaishnavi of the highest order, which, therefore, is already deeply engaged in the service of the divine. No? If you say someone is a Vaishnava of the highest order, that implies something. This insight shifts our usual view of matter. Instead of thinking that we are purifying material energy by engaging it in service of the divine, the reality is that matter is already engaged in divine service. It's a Vaishnavi of the highest order. It is we who are being graced with the opportunity to serve through matter by matter's grace. I'm seeing if nobody wants to attack me. Material energy as a pure devotee is already fully surrendered to the sweet absolute. It is we who are not there yet. And thus we are the ones who must catch up, striving to align ourselves with the same level of devotion. This perspective redefines how we approach the material world, inviting us to see the sacredness inherent in everything around us. Matter is not something to conquer or purify. It is a medium of grace, allowing us to connect with the divine through our everyday actions. It is not coincidence that the Sanskrit term Maya not only refers to matter, but also translates as grace. That's a word for mercy in Sanskrit, Maya. Through the grace of matter, we are given the opportunity to engage our senses and existence in divine service. Last paragraph. This shift calls for a recalibration of how we perceive matter, no longer as inert or profane, but as a devotee of the highest order, humbly offering us the chance to serve God. If we can learn to properly connect with material energy, we can be redeemed from our entangled state by her loving grace. Grace, therefore, is not just a reality external to matter. It is present within matter itself. How does it feel?
Beautiful. Yeah. Gorgeous.
What does your gut say?
Yes. Yeah.
There's an Om gut.
Absolutely.
Two more paragraphs from my book. Actually, I realized that where I was about to start is based on this post I made. So I'm skipping two paragraphs, and I'm starting the paragraph saying the entirety of the infinite. The entirety of the infinite is present in every drop of experience, beginning with our interaction with the realm of matter. Again, God is omnipresent. The entirety of the infinite is everywhere. This immediate presence of God calls us to cultivate a renewed sense of relatedness, not only with matter, but with the whole of reality. The essence of the sweet absolute is love, and thus God's omnipresence is synonymous with the presence of divine love everywhere. If God is everywhere and God is love, love is everywhere. As Christian mystic Julian of Norwich beautifully expressed, God wraps all of creation in love. This radical immersion of God in every pore of matter transforms the world into a conduit for profound meaning, purpose, and ultimately divine disclosure. Creation then complements the divine not by supplying something he lacks, but by relating to what he is, pure, boundless love. One more paragraph. Despite the omnipresence of God, a sobering note now, despite the omnipresence of God and love, we may sometimes find ourselves unable to perceive their presence. When something that exists everywhere and at all times eludes our awareness, it reflects not their absence, but ours. If God and love remain unseen to us, despite their omnipresence, it is because we are omni-absent. We need to sober all these things. Poetic is romantic, but still we may be omni-absent. So we need to remember, reassemble, put all the things in the proper place. Okay, let's do some exercise. And let's stretch a little bit also, no problem. So far we have described a few things. So I'll let you know the prompts now, and then we do the exercise. It will be in groups of 3 from the beginning. Will last 8 minutes, something like that total. So I will play just the bowl at the very end. So it's like this. We will assemble in groups of 3 and 1 group of 2. Or we'll make 2 groups of 4 and 2 groups of 3. It will work. So one by one, no? And we take turns, one, then the other, and you continue repeating till you exhaust the possibilities. Each person will share a toxic notion that they have internalized about matter, right? For example, brief, no, not the whole elaboration, not the whole paragraph, just like the body is sinful. To give an example, right? Material life distracts from spiritual life. Pleasure is dangerous. Sexuality is evil. All the stuff that we may have heard. Nature exists to be controlled. I can give an example. Of course, you don't have to copy paste me, but I can see how you may need to say that. Now the world is falling and we must escape it. All that, whatever. So briefly, you give the idea, and then briefly, try to be brief, describe how that idea shaped your relationship with the body, the earth, matter, depending the case. If I say the body is sinful, how that idea shaped your relationship with your body. If I say sexuality is inherently bad, how that idea shaped your idea with sexuality. If I say the planet, the material world is a horrible place that I need to run away from as soon as possible, how that idea shaped your relationship with that. You follow my point? Mm-hmm. Okay, briefly, again, no long explanations or justification, just the thing and then how that affected you in some level. And then, now comes the important part, the rest of the group will ask back to that person, and now how will you redeem that idea? No? And of course, then the same speaker will respond. How to see that from a new perspective. Imagine the distorted belief transfigure into truth, so to say, right? Seen through love, restored to wholeness. Instead of seeing to give example, instead of seeing my body as sinful, I see it as a temple where the divine dwells, right? Instead of escaping from the world, I want to find God within it, and so on. However it feels for you, of course, right?
How many examples do we get? Or just one? Just one.
Sorry?
How many examples?
I mean, one will speak first, no? It's not that the same person has to give many examples. We take turns with one example, but then start again until you exhaust your possibilities, or till if you have many more, I will play the gong when it's over. And as usual, the listeners, those who will be listening, are listening in silence, holding space, no advice, no correction. Just whenever it's your turn, curiosity, you can ask, how will you redeem that idea, that experience? It's clear?
Yes.
Okay. I will put pause to the recording and I will organize the groups and we will do it. Sorry to interrupt. I know it's a charged topic. I've opened a can of worms. Worms are all over the place, and the worms are sacred also. And the can, and the can is sacred also. Everything belongs, as Father Richard will teach us. So anyhow, I hope it was important sharing, and you feel free to continue doing that later. Be creative and spontaneous. So a few more words before we put our sharing to rest for a while. But of course, I hope you get the point that here we are not trying just to say that matter is not bad, matter is not profane, but matter is glorious and adorable, and all this in our tradition will say is because in itself matter is an expression of love. No, the background of material creation is this Vedanta Sutra will say Lokavatu Lila Kaivalyan. That's my favorite aphorism in the Brahma Sutra, Vedanta Sutra, which is the whole Srishti Lila, the whole material creation is a divine play of God, and it comes as an overflowing of the divine's own bliss. I refer to that both in radical personalism and this one. I don't fear being redundant and quoting the same thing both times, and probably I will do it in the next book as well. Yeah, and in the commentary on that sutra, there is a quote that Baladevi Devotion shares, which is like, just like a drunk man going back to the tavern, like a drunk person, it's just dancing and celebrating in a frenzy and without a purpose. They're just like celebrating life. The whole material creation emanates from the divine's drunkenness and celebration. So this is a tavern within the bigger tavern, so to say, meta tavern. Yeah, that's how mystics from all tradition will refer to this world, like through the filter of those eyes drunk with love and understanding. The whole of creation is impregnated with the divine's presence, the divine love. Christianity, mystical Christianity, will use the word kenosis, which means another way of saying God's self-emptying. The divine is emptying his own being and essence, and that appears as the cosmos. So the whole creation, again, Vishwarup, is the body of God. Again, you use different analogies or language, but they're all trying to say the same thing, right? It's a way of thinking. Okay, I'm within the body of God. No, God is in everything. Everything is in God. Panentheism. That's our philosophy. That's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavatam is not enough. Let's go to Bhagavad Gita. 6th chapter, verse 30. Jomam pasyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati. Those who see me in everything and who see everything in me, I'm never lost to them and they're never lost to me. That's panentheism in the Bhagavad Gita. Panentheism is everything in God. So we are in God now. This whole world can be seen as the body of God. We are living inside the divine. The divine is inside everything, and everything is inside the divine. That's what Yashoda saw when she was trying to peep at Krishna's mouth. Oh, everything is inside him, but he is here on planet Earth. So he's inside this, but this inside him. Paradoxical thinking. Achinta Ved Abed, another facet of Veda Ved. Everything is inside him is inside of everything. So again, material energy is animated by the most potent energy, which is love, divine love. So because of that, matter is very animated. That's the point. Material energy is not dead. Sometimes that inert matter, dead matter. I've heard even the expression brute matter. That's brute to say that. Brute matter, inert, profane, dead. Nothing of that. Alive, vibrant, no? An extension of the expression of divine love, sacred energy. already engaged in the service of the divine, by whose grace we can offer ourselves in service. By the grace of that lamp, by the grace of flower, by the grace of these, by the grace of, they're all facilitating. We wouldn't have mridanga, harmonium, chords without material energy allowing that to be so. So we have a depth over there. So I'm thinking we can conclude before going to one more exercise and before concluding officially. As I mentioned, at the end of each one of my chapters, I've done something that I call key paradigm shifts. Remember, paradigm shift means what Srila Sridhar Maharaj will call change your angle of vision. Now, shift. Your paradigm is your cosmovision, the way we tend to see everything. Try to create a shift, a holy shift in that. So at the end of every chapter, there is a list of them. We have not gone through each one of them in each chapter, but today I'm thinking we can go through them. Each one of these lists are a type of manifesto unto itself, right? Like this is what God is actually. This is what love is. This is what we are. Manifesto. This is what matter is. So maybe we can read the key paradigm shifts that are at the very end of chapter 4. This in page 201, at least starting there. So you can see there is a series of bullet points with a main line and then a brief explanation of it. Of course, again, it will take a few other retreats to explore each one in detail. So maybe we can take turns and read one each as a way of also owning those words and stating, again, as we were talking these days about the importance of voicing something loudly, articulating something, putting it out in the ether, the sound creating form, naming and framing, as a way of reminding ourselves of what we are talking about here. So I'll start with the first one. Of course, not all of us will have time to read, but we have 3, 6, 7, it will be 10. We're a little bit more than 10, but feel inspired. Whomever is not saying it, you're saying it. Yes. So the first one says, matter as living potency. Matter, far from being inert, embodies the potential for movement, growth, and vitality. Like any form of energy, it reflects the dynamic nature of God's perpetual evolution, revealing its sacred, ever-unfolding essence.
Divine love is the backdrop of creation. The world of matter is neither inferior nor despicable, but profoundly sanctified, existing as an overflow of God's ecstatic delight. It evolves alongside the ever-expanding heart of the divine. In essence, the universe is composed primarily of feelings or emotions, energy in motion.
We live in a relational universe. Everything exists within a vast web of interconnection, where God sustains a loving relationship with all aspects of creation, including the material realm. This divine relationality underscores the sacred unity of all existence.
Material energy is alive. Matter is not dull or inanimate, but a Shakti, a living force, imbued with divine presence in every atom. It is ever dynamic, continuously unfolding and evolving in its own unique manner.
The personhood of matter. Upon closer examination, matter reveals a conscious background, pointing to a personalistic aspect inherent in its aliveness.
Eternal and infinite matter. Material energy is in a state of perpetual transformation, with no beginning or end, embodying the qualities of both eternity and infinity.
The realm of matter is ever evolving, regardless of varying perspectives on biological evolution.
Matter is infinite, alive, and permeates by God's presence, unfolding and evolving in its own sacred and distinct manner.
Consciousness as the matter of evolution. Evolution is propelled by consciousness, not the reverse, signifying a progression of awareness and understanding as creation continues to develop and unfold.
Harmonizing scripture with science. Spiritual traditions are called to remain open to adapting their interpretations in light of scientific evidence, fostering the pursuit of deeper truths that align spiritual wisdom with empirical observations.
The last one.
The sacredness of material energy. Recognizing God's immediate presence within the material world allows us to restore and reclaim our sacred connection to it, preventing the desecration that arises when the divine is viewed as separate from creation.
Home to all that. So, of course, again, each one of these key paradigm shifts required their own retreat for exploration. We have tried to touch upon that a little bit. And, but yeah, I agree with all that, as you may imagine. Matter is not only sacred, it's infinite, has no beginning, has no end. In the Gita, the words Ananta and Anadi are used for material energy, which means no beginning, no end. So it's way more than what we think it is. And we need to spend enough time to explore that. And insights coming from places like the scientific world can also nourish all that. No, you can really learn from someone who has a telescope that you don't have, so to say, and they're just seeing beyond, scratching beyond the surface. And if you're a genuine scientist, you will be at wonder at every moment, because you're witnessing a very wonderful, wondrous reality. So there's lots of insight coming from it's a multidisciplinary affair. It's not just my book says that and it's over. No, my book is supporting that, but this is supporting my book as well, and we can support each other at the end of the day. So anyhow, all this trying to hopefully invite us to develop a more, how to say, not only appreciative and respectful, but adorable, adoring, loving approach in this relationship we have with matter. It's a relationship, and what matter is trying to tell us, as I always like to say, in one sense, the most important verse in our whole tradition is Mahaprabhu's third verse of Shikshastaka, and that's all about the natural world. And he's speaking about a blade of grass and a tree, and that's one of the most important things we've ever heard. So we need to listen to nature and to pay attention to see how we're being, how to say, invited to go beyond the ordinary appearance of things and go into the extraordinariness of nature. So we'll do a second exercise now. One more, the last one, in connection to this. And we will start first by us writing on our own. I will let you know about what. And so quickly you pick your book and your pencil. So it will be, first of all, a personal reflection. Let's say a few minutes, 4 minutes or something. So individually, each of you will pick one ordinary object, quote unquote, from your daily life and write about it. I will give you 5 options. You won't have the option to pick anything. I just give 5. Okay? So one ordinary object that I'm sure it's part of everyone's daily life, and write about it. And I'll mention which are the options. Again, they will be, quote unquote, ordinary. A cup, a pair of shoes. I'm mentioning 5 and you pick the one you want. A pen, like the one you're holding now. A phone, why not? A piece of clothing. So as you write about whichever object you've selected, you select one, how you can ask the question and write about it. How can this particular object be seen as a sacred vessel of the divine. Try to go beyond the surface of what the object seems to be, and how this particular object can be seen as a sacred vessel of the divine, of divine grace. So let your imagination, your heart guide you. Consider the object's history, its service, the service it gives, it provides to you, how it participates in your daily life, how it facilitates your offering your own life in service. So we'll have a few minutes of writing, and then we'll make groups, and everyone will be sharing for a few minutes their insights about that. So I'm playing the gong to start, 4 or 5 minutes writing, and then we'll go to the group. I'll sing it by the bowl. Welcome back, and sorry to interrupt the sharing. After 10 days of interrupting all your conversation, I must be the most hated person in this world. What to do? But I hope you had a nourishing, contemplative moment of taking something apparently ordinary and learning to respect that. Remember the meaning of the word respect? Spessare. Spessare comes spectacles. So to look again, to look anew, to rediscover reality for what it is.
I need to shop for lunch.
Please. I'm finishing in 5 minutes, but please go. Yeah. So anyhow, that's basically what I want to share with you today, trying to address this last chapter, although very briefly, but on the sacredness, adorability of matter. And of course, today we are concluding our series of sharings around evolution and divine love, which is an ongoing exploration to honor the name of the book. We just touched a few points of an infinite line, I will say, and I think that's exactly to show the main theme of the book, which is reality is vast. It's too much. It's ever evolving. So no matter how many retreats, how much we talk about it, the more we do it, the more there is to plumb its depth. So divine dissatisfaction, false satisfaction, and divine dissatisfaction, and thirst for more. So I will give you, to conclude, a Lectio Divina for today, one final Lectio Divina, if you allow me. And this will be a quote that is in the book, and it's a quote by Ilia Delio. You may be familiar with her. She's a dear friend of mine, elder, Franciscan nun, scientist, theologian, has like 5 PhDs or something. And is very humble on top of that, which is the ultimate PhD. And and in one sense, this book, one of the main inspirations for this book has been her own work, her own writing about evolution, and from the perspective, of course, of the Christian tradition mostly, though referring at times to Vedanta and other schools. But she's a very revolutionary and dynamic person and author, and reading some of her books, especially one called The Emergent Christ, if you want to have the reference, that was one of the main inspirations for me to write this book, basically. So I feel it proper to honor her by invoking her in one way or another. I mean, she's very present in the pages of the book, but I feel it proper to conclude our series of explorations on evolution and divine love by reflecting on a phrase from her, that you will find in pages 199 and then 200. It's a short one. I will read it. We'll read it once. It's a beautiful one, summarizing what we have shared so far. She says, "Until we come to know God in evolution, we shall find the world a problem. It is not the world, the flesh, and the devil that are obstacles to God. It is our refusal to let God be in the world that undergirds our rejection of both God and the world. God is unbroken wholeness in movement, and creation is movement toward God-centered wholeness. Therefore, instead of standing in the world looking for God, we should stand in God and look out at the world. If God seems absent from the world, it may be because we refuse to give birth to God in our daily lives." So that will be today's Lectio Divina, from 5 to 6, sitting in silence, spending some time with these lines. And if something particularly capture your attention, you can just pause there, embrace that, go deep, pray, and see what else is coming. Before putting our sharing to rest, any questions that will prevent you from having a peaceful sleep this night?
I don't have a question, but for some reflection that came to my mind.
Yeah.
I was thinking how, like, it's we read. I can't remember exactly if it was Prabhupada saying that the material energy or material nature exists for it to be used in service of God.
Mm-hmm.
So we employ like everything in the material world in service. Somehow we interpret that as like it's not sacred or like already in service, and by us using, then we've spiritualized it. So yeah, I just noticed that it's our interpretation that was what do you call it, like tribal maybe. In understanding.
Or to center in us. Okay,
Yes.
I'm doing a favor to, I'm redeeming instead of I'm being favored by. Yeah, there are different ways and languages to speak about the same thing, and some people may need to hear first, okay, employ this in the service of Krishna, and eventually you realize, oh no, actually this already employed in the service of Krishna. It was all for me to be offered. At the beginning we start thinking with the idea of I'm doing this potato a favor by making it prasad. And then you realize, oh, the potato is doing me a favor, so I become prasad. Because I'm not offered yet. I have to offer myself voluntarily in love. Material energy is already offered in love. The potato is already a bhakta. Yeah. Bhakta potato. Yeah, really. So yeah, it's a paradigm shift. It's a change of angle of vision. Tapanandini, yeah.
It seems easier to see God in nature, but when like we're in a city and things are man-made, how do we manage that? Especially when it seems like it's gone wrong, with all pollution and.
Yeah, and again, all that it's not the natural order of things. That's us doing mess with our free will. Many times, I acknowledge that many times you have to start in nature. Especially if you are too much in city dynamics, you may need to take a break from that and run back to embrace Mother Earth, Mother Father Tree, Sister Brother Moon, Sister Brother Sun, Sister Moon, like spending some quality time exposed to the natural elements to regain our roots in that connection. And then when we witness the other expression of material energy, that's basically, again, it's a sobering lesson to see, okay, what this whole thing can end up in if we don't see nature as sacred. And because again, originally the original material creation was not plastic and cities and pollution and this. That's the risk of love. Again, we have free will. God invites us to choose, and when we don't choose love, we end up with stuff. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we have to hate the city and reject everything, but how to deal with that in the most loving possible way. How can I participate in the ecological crisis of the time? That's a way of Vaishnav Seva, because you are serving Mother Earth, material energy, which is a Vaishnavi. Again, it's not like that's material stuff, material charity, as we were talking yesterday. It has nothing to do with bhakti. If you have the proper conception, it all has to do with bhakti. So again, sometimes we may need to take a distance if the whole thing is too overwhelming to properly understand what's going on. Like I remember last year we were in Times Square Park in New York, and I was like, okay, neon lights all over, these giant things, and we were given a lecture on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur speaking about how all this world is potential paraphernalia to use in Krishna service. Sometimes we may need some time to understand how or how we can be employed in Krishna service through matter, and sometimes we may need to take a distance from. the big cities to understand the big city for what there is, because if we are just too close to it, as I give the example, if my hand is too close to my eye, I lost sight of my hand. I no longer see it for what it is, so I need to take a distance. The hand be in the city. Oh, okay, I can understand from there it's coming. How can I interact with that? And hopefully we can always take our nature breaks, so to say, right? Because that's necessary. So you need your time for silence, for prayer, for groundedness and connection, so you can see the depths of everything always, but you need to take some quiet time and space. Being in communion with nature is important. It's a revolutionary act, I would say. Something else? Karuneshwari?
Yeah, I was thinking it's not that some of those toxic ideas aren't mentioned either in scripture. You know, like for example, I think Prabhupada did say this world is a prison house, but it seems that it's just that was emphasized out of proportion. And all the positive ways of seeing the world were not emphasized enough.
Yeah, and also again, a line like that has to be understood in context and has to bring all the nuance and what else someone like him said, because like it's not that that's the only thing he had to say about. And when we say also, that's a very important point for me that I didn't mention. Like, okay, the material world is a prison house, so the material world is miserable. Or the material, what does it mean, material world? What do we understand by that? Huh? The planet Earth, the material energy, or a particular state of consciousness that we are vibrating in that makes the whole thing miserable. I go for the last one. You join me in that one? I mean, Srila Maharaj will say Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. So by extension, non-Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. Yeah. The material world is a state of consciousness. The spiritual world is a state of consciousness. Now, the other day, reading Srila Maharaj, he quoted this line from the Bhatan, Sarva Sukhamai, something else, I'm forgetting the line. 11th canto, Krishna is saying, whomever sees me everywhere, Sarva Sukhamai. For that person, everything is full of joy, always, everywhere. Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur said, Vishwapurnam Sukhayati, the whole universe is filled with ecstasy, with joy. And Krishna says, Dukhalayama Sashvatam, material world is temporary and miserable. Just to make the point, like depending where you are vibrating, you will have a particular experience. If you are self-centered, dualistic, in ignorance, covert, selfish, yeah, it will be miserable. And you will perceive it as temporary. But if you are grounded in what the actual reality of matter is, you will be like jaw dropped at every step, basically, right? Have to reach to that point of jaw-dropping bhakti. Oh, that's our mode of performing. Fascination. In Krishna Chandra Prabhu he would like to say, there is the path of regulation, there is the path of fascination. So how we would like to practice and live our lives. The path of intimidation and the path of jaw-dropping. Wonder, yeah. Rasa Sar Chamatkar, wonder is the essence of rasa. Tugamaya Bhakti Rasa, both raise your hand.
Just have a quick thing.
Yeah.
That ties in with what you just said.
Yeah.
So, I'm just wondering, that's how we vibrate. That's, what we experience. But also, is that not what we would see in scripture also? Both things are there and what we're vibrating at that particular moment. Those things are what will resonate with us, and that's what we'll see. Stand out.
And that's why you have all these different statements which seem contradictory, but they're just there because different people is vibrating different frequencies, and each one needs their own relatable statement. Doesn't mean that all of them are on the same level, right? There are deeper conceptions than others, but you will find all that. That's what Srila Maharaj will refer to scripture as a jungle of sounds. And you need to know how to navigate, because if not, you get lost. Like this says here, and this seems to be exact opposite, and this contradicts. So how to understand the jungle of sounds in proper context, and understanding that it's addressing the totality of the reader's audience, which happen to be in very different place and state of consciousness. So you have to find your place and your statements, and you may not relate to other parts. And eventually, as you grow and progress, some other parts will become less relevant. And the more we advance, as we say the other day, the more we grow in our heart, the more we grow in how reality ultimately operates. All these other sections, which seem to be fear-driven, intimidation, chastisement, punish, reward, you can understand them for what they are, for who they were meant, but they're no longer hold the same degree of importance that those depictions would picture reality as filled with love and wonder and so on. Like the other day, I was hearing a podcast by Father Richard Rohr, and he said, at one point, your heart grows bigger than your theology. And I'm not saying this, that theology is smaller than your heart, but you had a certain theology, and your heart outgrows your previous theology, and now with your heart expanded, you realize, oh, actually the theology was bigger than what I thought, but I needed my heart to expand for me to grasp that. And that happens over and over again. It's not just one time act.
No fixed maximum.
No? Order, disorder, reorder, however you like to call it. Yogamaya, last sharing question.
An observation again.
Observation.
What's going on in the world right now? That there's a lot of speak about consciousness and how there's a higher consciousness emerging, and how more and more people, it'll tip scales, so that people who didn't see all the plastic and the dirt, all of a sudden they're seeing it, and trying to do something about it. So there's a huge shift, I think. And of course, you hear it over and over again, people talking about vibration, energy, and consciousness, and so that they're really turning and beginning to look at these things.
Yeah, and many of that turning is driven by the negativity that creates the need for an alternative to that, and that's why many times we'll say, "Oh, Kali Yuga is the worst age," but it can be the best age if you learn from the worst. If you learn from how low you can fall, okay, better we don't continue there. We are about to extinguish ourselves. Let's explore the conscious realm. So yeah. Okay, we put the sharing to rest. Today in the evening we are not having Q&A, we are having circle sharing. And tomorrow morning we will be having another circle sharing, but more in the context of reflecting together about the retreat and what was the experience for us. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai, Gaur Premananda.